Hey guys, Mike here. So, oh boy, what a day in the market. Matter of fact, it was such a big day the last 2 days that we literally wiped out all the losses from the entire week of last week, plus the first 3 days of this week, right? And it's amazing what 2 days made. Now we're going to talk about why this happened and stuff like that. But understand the game has somewhat changed. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. This is also one of those days where it's not about just one day. You have to pay attention to what the weekly ranges are. If you don't know what that is, I'll tell you in just a minute. But obviously, I'm going to try to make this video shorter than usual because it is Friday. And I want to get my weekend started. How about you? So if you look at this right here, here's what's going on with investors. We are, or they are, whoever it is piling into cash. You can see right there, big spike up going into cash. And of course, we talked about this. Why, right? This is the money market funds. Look back here. This is the last time you were able to get a decent interest rate for your money. Well, now we're seeing that. So people are like, hey, why in the world would I want to put all money in a stock market that's all over the place, could go down another 20%, and God knows if we're not going to have another, some people are calling for new all-time highs for like 10 years and stuff. When I can put it in, a money market account, which is FDIC insured, or a bond or whatever, and draw between like 4 and 5%, almost risk-free, right? And this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about risk-free. But look at this. The 6-month T-bill yield is on the verge of surpassing the S&P 500's earnings yield, right? And this goes only about 2018, but look at that. It used to be a huge gap. It's not a huge gap anymore, okay? And especially big money looks at this, and people retiring are looking at this as well, right? Because they obviously need their money. And big money just has, well, they have a lot of money to put out there. So for them, drawing 5% on, $300 million is a lot. Now, going into the SPY here, S&P, look at these two big candles. Bam. Wiped out all those losses over last week, last 2 days, got back up above that trend line, made it back in support, supposedly. We'll have to see if we hang on there. But what we talk about, again, you're sitting right there at the 200 moving average, the anchor VWAP in the October low, the 618. I mean, it was just, you were due for this to happen, right? I mean, I think everybody saw this coming, hopefully. I mean, we talked about it a few days ago. And shockingly, it happened. And going to the smaller time frame, this is what I was talking about with your weekly options ranges, right? What they calculate in here, what they expect for the whole week to do on an upper level and a lower level, right? So the upper level, as you'll see right here, is sitting around 404. The exact one was actually 404.02. And so we end up going 38 cents above that and closing about 8 cents above it, right? And it sits in this range. It will end in that range 68 to 70% of the time, which is important, right? So when you're seeing this moving, all of a sudden you go, wow, we just blew through the 400 options, which there was a lot of them. I guess they didn't mind paying those out. And of course, you keep moving, you go, wait a minute, that's when you go, what's the weekly range, right? And the reason why the weekly range is very important, the option market sets this up. It's okay, this is what we were expecting, right? And this was what people were really nervous about last week. And you saw all these VIX call options being bought up like crazy because these gamma squeezes, that we've come to know them, we've seen them up, right? Well, they can happen going the opposite way. They happen going down. And when we last week, I think it was the market was closed Monday. Tuesday we opened. We went below the weekly range right out of the gate, the very first day, which is kind of abnormal, right? And then it sold down even more. And people said, wait a minute. If we start getting too far below this, all of a sudden it forces those market makers we talked about and everybody else start doing more hedging, right? Which means they would be selling more stock, more and more than what they actually expected. If you remember my Amazon picture I showed you and stuff that one of our members gave us, that's what I'm talking about. And people were really worried about that, right? And so, but of course, it didn't happen. And to me, there's only two ways we're going down. Everybody says it's just a drop off a cliff. Is stocks are going to drop 20%. Well, again, there's a whole lot of support there. And the biggest thing people worry about, or what's going to take us down if you want to go down, is a gamma squeeze, right? And so, unless there's some black swan event, besides that, the market's throwing every piece of bad news you can imagine at it economically and everywhere else. And today the Fed was out in full force talking about how there's going to be no rate cuts, need more rate hikes. And guess what? The market didn't give a crap, right? It didn't care. It kept moving up. Why did it move up? This is one good reason why. This is what to me has changed the game for now. And you get these products that does this, and it's these ODTE options, man. I'm telling you, look at this. Look at this chart carefully. Pause this if you have to. So look at this. That color right there is obviously less than 24 hours. Look at the increase since 2019, okay? And 2020, really it started in 2020. That changed the game forever. Then the next color, 20 hours to 1 week, okay? And then look above that. That's the 1 week to 1 month, and then greater than 1 month. Look how small it is starting in 2022, right? Go to the left. Look at what was dominant from 2011 all the way up to 2020, right? It was more than a week. Now all of a sudden, look at what's grown exponentially. And guys, if you're getting anything out of this, please hit that like button. It really does help the channel. And if you're new here and you like this kind of content, think about hitting the subscribe button. I really appreciate it. And this is extremely important to understand. I'm still wrapping my head around it, to be honest. I think a lot of people are. And this is why people are calling for Volmageddon, volatility. Some kind of crazy deal with volatility that happened in 2018. You get these products. These products always come along. This has been around, you see, for a while. Just hadn't really been used. Now all of a sudden, it's being used, not just by us, by the big boys. And I've showed you that, right? And so this throws a wrench in the market, right? And so people got to figure this out because it throws the put-call ratio off. If you hadn't noticed that, that's totally out the window right now. But you got to think, I mean, if people are just buying, as we talked about, if they're buying calls, that means the market maker is selling them the calls. And then the hedge, what are they doing? They're buying the stock, right? Which can push everything up, okay? And opposite comes to if they're selling the puts, right? And people are buying puts, then they're going to do what? They're selling the stock. And so all of a sudden you see these 24-hour, so what was the second deal right there? In less than a week being opened up. And that's, if you look, that's the majority of what's being opened right now, right? That has a huge effect on the market. It also keeps us in this range, this chop box as you've seen forever and ever. So all that has something to do with, again, I'm learning even more about it. You know, I buy them and stuff like that, but I've never like pulled back the curtain and said, let me figure out ODT options because they've been around, I showed you, for a while. It's just now they're very, very popular. And, you know, going into Tesla, what we talk about, Investor Day is what it is. You know, looking at the chart, obviously it was only up 3% today, right? Big day in the market. Tesla only goes up 3, stays in that zone right there. That's a huge zone. 188 to around 200 really is big for it. You know, you look at that trend line, that's the trend line, right? Come out here. You still got to break it. Still waiting on that one to be tested. Okay, the other trend line got tested. We broke through that one to the downside. But that's going to happen in the next week or two. It's going to have to make a choice. It's going down or it's going up, right? It's breaking out. And if you look, there's the Anchor VWAP right there from February, which it rode all the way up. And now it's sitting there as resistance. We got above it for a couple minutes. A couple hours actually, and then we broke that down below it. So again, it's respected it. We'll see if it can break back above it or just stay in that area. And it popped really for any, I mean, you can see what it popped on, wasn't just the market. It's that their shipments from their China factory rose 32% from a year ago and represents a 13% jump month over month from January. So it's burning on all cylinders, right? And I don't usually mention this one, but NVIDIA is one I wanted to mention because it's just a stock that just won't quit, right? I mean, it's just wedging up here, obviously. And what I'm curious about more than anything to see is it gets to this trend line. This trend line right here, if I go to a wider version, you can see this is the 2020 low trend line, okay? And it has bounced off of it, you know, multiple times. But I want to see if it can test it. And I know, look, to get up there, it's going to be crazy because it's like in the 280, 290 range or something. And we're already overbought on the weekly. But again, NVIDIA is a different kind of stock, right? It gets overbought on the weekly a lot, and it can be overbought for weeks. So I just want to see, you know, can it get up there? And that will be a great place for a rejection if it makes it there. What to see again, seasonality wise, the market could be with it. You know, usually March 10th, 15th, whatever it is, we usually get a good turn going into April, and then of course it's selling May go away is what you normally get. But again, we're in this crazy situation where economic news sucks, rates are high, no cuts, all this other stuff, and the market's playing this game of, well, maybe we'll go ahead and start running up to, obviously, there's going to be a pause sometime, right? Even though it could be months out, right? Which was the rally from December into January and into February, right? That's what that was all about, right? So I told the members that wasn't fundamental or anything like that. You got to be kidding me, right? But again, if you look at the earnings season just ended today. Yay! Woohoo! Won't be long before we start another round, but it's over right now. So now you're looking at what's the catalyst from here going forward, right? You're going to have obviously CPI coming out. One of the Fed presidents said, oh, don't worry, that could have been a one-off, right? Because we changed calculations, we changed weights. So that's something you got to look at as well. And so that's going to be, is it the 14th or is it the FOMC meeting? I got to look. We'll talk about that next week or in Sunday's video when I come out with that one. I'll have that set up for you. But, you know, that's really it. Your earnings catalysts are gone. The economic data still is terrible, right? So that's not going to be anything. But the market seems to be pretty much ignoring that at will. Liquidity doesn't look that great. Banks are raising, lending standards on everybody, that kind of stuff. But remember, the market's going to do what it wants to do, and unfortunately, what runs it? We see right here, the options are running it, right? So again, if you have a great video or something that got your brain wrapped around how these ODT options are, affecting the market, and we talk about it in Discord a lot. It may be the number one subject, honestly. It probably is, just because it's what really is driving it, right? It's like when SPAC stocks were hot, that's what everybody was talking about. What the heck's going on with SPAC stocks? And they've been around for years, but it just had to be one of those things. And of course, what happened? It imploded. And a lot of people are saying, and eventually will happen, where these options will break something. Something will break. That's just the way it's going to be. It's going to happen. We'll have to see. The market will set us up for it. Whether it's going to game and squeeze higher and lower, we'll have to see on that one. So anyway, hope you got something out of it. Let me know how your Friday went and stuff. And I'll see you guys Sunday.